Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first Senate meeting of the fall semester. We're so excited to have you all join us tonight. If you'll give us just a couple more minutes, since it's the first meeting, I just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to join in with us tonight. So in case there's any like technology hiccups, that they'll be here. So we're going to be just another minute or two, and we really appreciate your patience. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Before we kick off our usual agenda, I do just want to go over the things that I have on the screen, just to make sure that we're all on the same page for like our Zoom norms, since it's not our usual meeting. Please keep your audio and video like muted if you're not the one speaking. That way, it's just easier for us. Like we don't like stretch anyone's bandwidth too strong, and it's easy to tell like who's speaking and who has the floor. Um, Please make sure to keep the chat limited to business only once we get into the business portions, just so we can keep track of motions and who's making what at any point. I'll sometimes say like a motion out loud, and someone can just put like so moved or second in the chat. Please make sure to change your name to your position, which I actually haven't even done yet. If you're a guest, feel free to like indicate that you're a guest, just so we know who you are, and we can welcome you into our space right now. Just a reminder that when we do voting, voting will be conducted via like roll call. So Speaker Pro Tempore Billman will call names, or we'll just use the raise hand feature. Another personal ask is please don't direct message me, just since I'm trying to keep track of all the motions and everything. I'd much prefer that like you shoot me an email, or please contact parliamentarian Michael Arnold or Speaker Pro Tempore Maggie Billman, so they can get those to me instead. And then finally, please be patient with everyone. Again, like Zoom is so new for us and everything. Everyone did great in the spring, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, so we can have a fun and good meeting tonight. So with that, give me just a second to get our agenda for the evening pulled up, and then we will get started. Okay, so with that, I now call this meeting of the Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. We will forego the Pledge of Allegiance, seeing as how we are online, but we will move into first roll call right now. So Speaker Pro Tempore Billman will take the roll.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started on the roll, I just want to remind everyone to please correct me if I say your name wrong. Your name is very important to me and I want to get it right. So please correct me. With that, let's start off with Atchison.
Here.
All right. Booz?
Here.
Brown Alex? Brown Madison?
Here.
Bruce?
Here.
Brummett?
Here.
Bruno? Burke,
Here.
Carlson,
Here.
Carr, Clements,
Here.
Colburn,
Here.
Cox, Crosslow,
Here.
De Santiago, Diaz de Leon,
Here.
Delaveau.
Here.
All right, Fox, thank you. Frederick,
Here.
Gallardo,
Here.
thank you. Garrett,
Here.
Glasscock,
Here.
Grills, Grolmus.
Here.
Was that right, Ashley? Or Rachel, sorry.
Yep, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Guzman, Hamlin, Harmon,
Here.
Hurd,
Here.
Hernandez,
Here.
Hutchings, Jambunathan,
Here.
Johnson, Levi,
Here.
Manners,
Here.
McKee, McVeigh,
Here.
Muthukumar,
Here.
Knoll, Norwood,
Here.
Nunning,
Here. Here.
Phillips, Panicatu,
Here.
Porter, Reichenberg.
Here, and it's Richenberg.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry. Rossi, Schmidt,
Here.
Shunjay. All right, Snyder Ben,
Here.
Snyder Blaine,
Here.
Vaughns,
Here.
Wagner, Wallace, Ward,
Here.
Watkins,
Here.
Wilcox, Willis,
Here.
and Windholtz.
Here.
And sorry, is it Windholtz or Windholtz?
The first way is correct.
Perfect, thank you. All right, did I miss anyone in the chat? Okay. Great. Yes. Okay. And Wallace. Okay. All right, with that, we have 41 senators present.
Thanks so much for doing the roll, Maggie. Please welcome Dr. Elmore. Sorry, didn't realize that I was muted. Dr. Jessica Elmore will be our first open period speaker tonight. So if you all would like to action, and we welcome Dr. Elmore.
Dr. Elmore, your camera's muted.
I see that now. I was saying, is it possible for me to see faces by chance? Okay. Yay. Okay. Well, as mentioned, I am Dr. Jessica Elmore. I work for the K-State Alumni Association. I'm the Associate Director for Diversity Programs for the K-State Alumni Association. I just want to say first, thank you so much for inviting me back. That means that I was good the first time when you invited me to come. So I'm really, really pleased to be asked to come speak to you again and then to be a part of your first meeting. The title was about bias, assumptions, and being deliberative in your decision-making with the diversity and inclusion lens. And I think it's really awesome because as we are all living through this time, we have a lot of racial situations happening, social unrest and things like that. And the topic of diversity and inclusion has risen even higher as a point of interest among a lot of different communities. But what I'm finding is that it's a lot more of the questions about what do I do or what do we do? And so what I wanted to take this few moments of time to talk about is preparing for diversity, equity, and inclusion. As we are all striving to get there, we don't really think about when you arrive. And is there really an arrival? Who knows? But we have to think about when you get there, what does that look like? And so I feel that we as an organization, as an individual, we need to think about how are we prepared for that diversity, for that inclusion, for that interaction of implementing equity. In my personal belief, is that we romanticize diversity. That when we're all diverse and all these diverse of thoughts and things like that, that's when it'll be better. That's when we'll be in a better experience and things like that. And there is benefit to diversity, but when we romanticize it, I don't think we get to the reality of what diversity, a true diverse organization is really, which is a lot more conflict and a lot more compromise. And that is extremely important because if you go from an organization, no matter what it is, where you have like-minded and there's little resistance to different thought, it can be very jarring when you successfully introduce diversity and do your best to provide inclusion, that it can be a shock to the system and it can be a shock to individuals who didn't think about the end product of having that diversity. So I just want to talk a little bit about what I believe that looks like and how the Student Governing Association, as you are on your own journey of wanting to look at things and wanting to get more diverse people to be a part of your experience and your organization, I think about conflict management. And of course, as the largest, body, the most authority on this campus, you deal with all kinds of different communities. You are the students' voices. But when you think about those who are part of your organization, and you think about, are we diverse enough, however that definition is meant within your organization, the question is, what's your conflict management? What's your conflict level like? If it's pretty, we kind of go with it and, we can get some things kind of done, you might want to look at that. It might be diversity of thought is not there. I don't believe that it's just a diversity of look. I think that there are a lot of different levels. And so when you find that you're having more conflict, when you're finding that you're having to do the harder work of compromise and getting to agreement, you can look at that as a measurement of possibly getting to that diversity level that you are aspiring to have. I look at the nature of all student organizations is your consistency of starting over. When you elect new leadership, you're kind of starting over. I mean, there's some continuity, but you know, you got new leadership, you've got new agendas, you've got new things, and so you're kind of starting that process over. So what does diversity, that narrative, that inclusion look like within your organization? You know, it's not a one time and that because that was somebody's agenda and so we're good. How does that move through your organization? How does that become embedded? Is something to think about when we are wanting to strive for more diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then I would say that when the stars align, you want to have people on your team to recognize that so you can run as fast as you can when you're trying to make waves. My experience with diversity and inclusion and striving for equity, it feels like a lot of starts and stops and starts and fits and all these different things, and you get very frustrated. Sometimes you don't feel like you're moving forward. Sometimes you feel like you're moving back. But when those stars align, like a moment now when people are listening, it's like your plan is already in the ready, it's time to go. You know, so you're always in this preparation of when the stars align, let's move, let's get as much as we can because it's not promised to be long lasting. That's just not how things are, you know. But even though it may not be the top agenda item, doesn't mean that it completely stops. It just means that you work harder to be seen on the main stage, or you continue to develop and fix the things that happened that were unearthed when you were on the main stage. So in this point in time, although diversity, inclusion, you know, especially at K-State has been a running conversation, it feels like it's got a higher platform where more people who didn't think about it before are now looking at that. And so I say take advantage and run and see that the stars are aligning, but don't romanticize it and not understand that what you are actually asking for is to introduce more conflict and more compromise and more of a journey toward agreement. And that takes a lot of energy and personal work. So the next thing I want to say is, you know, now that we can think about what diversity can do within an organization, which is increase the conflict management aspect, is why do you really want the diversity? What is it? Are we looking for the look of diversity, but the actions of assimilation? Or are you looking for the actual actions of diversity? And what does that mean for you working as an organization? That's extremely important. I do a lot of consulting work, and what I'm finding is that there's more so the look of diversity, and that's where people stop. But then the actual involvement within the organization is the desire for people to actually assimilate to the already set norms. And so it's hard if you are already a part of and created that social norm to receive someone who's not from that social norm to then say, why are you trying to mess things up? Why are you being difficult? Why are you always combative? Why are you, you know, X, Y, and Z? And we have to realize that's a part of the process. And when you want to succeed in that space, the people who are already a part have to be ready, have to already have some skill sets in place and do the work. And so I believe that we have to honestly look at where are we at in our organization. Are we in a place where we're new to this? We've been at this for a while and we're ready to level up. You know, where is that? And so every organization should be operating in some different form because some people are a lot farther along than others. It just depends on the work that you've been doing already on the underground before it all rose to the top. And that's really important to be able to recognize within your group. So I hope you guys take some time to think about it critically about where are we at on the spectrum, so then you can identify some really great ways for your individual participants to be able to continue to level up if that's where you guys are at. I bring that up because when you think about the team formation or the team cycle, for those who are College of Business grads, you learn a lot about team cycles. And you've got that forming, you've got that storming, you've got that norming, and then you've got that performing. And so when you're looking at that, and it starts over when you introduce new people to your team. So the forming is kind of like that initial phase, everybody's kind of their best behavior, you don't want to say anything wrong, you're just trying to get to know people, whatever. But that wears off. And so that's when the storming happens, it's like, I've dealt with it long enough, this is me, whatever it is. And so that's where some of that conflict happens. But I feel like that's where diversity lives. That's where you're learning how to really be a team, where you're not walking on eggshells or you're having to apologize every time you say something because you don't have a relationship with that team member for some actual understanding. I look at that as the elasticity of a relationship. This is when you're testing, is this a real relationship where I can be open and honest, although respectful, but still being able to present issues and not participate in groupthink. Then that norming is where you get used to each other and the way of things of working, and where we kind of align and where we have issues and we're trying to find ways of compromise and agreement. And then that performing, which kind of it sucks really, because once you've got a group of longevity students, sometimes maybe your seniors, if they've been in from freshman to whatever, you're like, I already know how to move this engine, like I know how she works, he knows how I work, this is how it is. And so you're just performing, and you're able to get things done. So you've got to be able to pay attention to that, especially as you're bringing on your new leadership. You want to pay attention to where in that phase and be prepared. The last thing that I do want to share is the question of how your SAB, that's my other organization, SGA members are prepared. And what does that look like? And I know from working here now for 10 years that the question in diversity and inclusion is, when are we going to stop talking about it and be about it? When are we going to do more? Right? And I've listened to that and I've sat back and I'm like, okay. I said, but people really don't know what doing is. Like, no one has an idea, so it's like, so you can say, don't talk about it, be about it, or I want to do something, but no one has really laid out those practical aspects. And so in my thinking about this and the work that I do, I believe it's a personal journey. I believe that we can't worry about trying to fix another community or fix another group of people, but really work on self and work on the personal journey, because that is where most transgressions happen, is in that personal interaction one-on-one. And everybody has the capacity to be a person to infringe on another person. And so I believe that if we collectively work on our own journey, that it can change a culture, it can change a space. And so what me and a couple of colleagues have done is we took the now popular book, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Dr. Ibram Kendi. Last fall is when we actually had this idea where we wanted to do a second like book club, but I said, I don't want to just do a book club. I wanted to do a mastermind experience that was focused on personal journeys, because the act of striving to participate in more anti-racist behaviors is a scary one, is a self-reflecting one, and is a life-transforming one if you want it to be. But at K-State, we believe in doing things in community. So that's what we have done. I just did my first session yesterday. Currently, we have about 400 participants on campus, including the K-State athletics staff. Asked me to run their small group. And so we're really excited about that. Of course, I understand that that's a popularity aspect. So, we'll see how it kind of goes, but the opportunity to get in front of a lot of K-Staters and go through this journey together is what I'm excited about. I bring this to this group because we do have a student group that's through Tremaine Lindsay, through the DMSA. We had it kind of separated out for mainly our undergraduates, because when you're dealing with faculty, staff, and things like that, and having to talk about your own racist behavior, it's pretty intimidating, especially if you got to do it already. So I feel like we wanted to be able to provide a space for students who are interested in taking that next step. You know, we can participate in KS Unite, we can participate in Wildcat Dialogues, we can do all those things, but then the question is that next step. We are looking at this as the next step, which is a personal next step. His email address for those who are interested in participating is Lindsay, which is LINDSE at k-state.edu. Tremaine, I'll spell his name because it's not a, I wouldn't even say a traditional, it's spelled like this. TRUMANUE. This is open, even though he's in, you know, the Department for Diversity and Multicultural Student Organizations, you know, sometimes people will assume that the title means it's only for a particular set of people. This is not, it's open. They haven't had their first session yet. But this is a really great way to do some self-reflection and going through the process for self, especially when you're trying to identify how to create actions for yourself that can benefit your time on SGA. It doesn't just sit within the student group. We also will do a very large group where we're bringing all the large groups or all the small groups together to have cross-community interaction. So when you're saying, I don't want to just talk to people who are like me or all just students, we are providing 3 different opportunities to do that. In our first session will be on September 17th, and the homework is to watch Zootopia, and we're going to go through an experience with that. So try to do some fun things. So if you're interested, like I said, Nathan has my contact, so if you need something else, but I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Tremaine and get a part. It doesn't matter if you haven't read the book yet. If you don't have it, we're definitely open to just being able to accommodate everyone who wants to be on this experience. The second thing I would like to share as I close is our own K-State history and our own K-State culture. It's a variety of culture. And so as I work for the K-State Alumni Association, and as we're in our social distancing, we've had to pivot a lot to our virtual space. And so one of the things that I started to come up with was, how do I bring to the forefront the stories, the experiences of our communities of color? And so I created a program called K-State Culturally. It's a series of virtual programming that is centered on celebrating, uplifting, and educating the Wildcat community through the lens of communities of color that are affiliated or connected to Kansas State University. And so things that I'm trying to do is really try to embrace some of our alumni of color topics that are occurring within the campus, but to then share that with our K-State family, so that we can all understand the various narratives that we all say, I didn't know, or I wish I knew, or how do I learn more? It's not documented in a book. And so these posts and these interviews that I'm participating in is a way to just provide this as a service to our community. How you can find that information is on Facebook. Now, I know Facebook's not very popular with your group, but that is the platform that I am using because that's where our alumni are. But then also I feel like, you know, it's probably easier just to do it that way. And so that's on the K-State MAC Facebook page, which is MAC. That stands for Multicultural Alumni Council. And so that's where I'm hosting that. So like today, I posted about the first Hispanic graduate of Kansas State University, which was in 1924. I think that's something extremely important for us to be proud of, you know, as a long history. You know, sometimes people can assume, you know, what's in Kansas, you know, are there people of color in Kansas? And I'm like, heck yeah, there is, you know? So just things like that, just conducting some interviews with other alumni about a variety of different things. And so this is a nice window to be able to experience and add to your level of K-State knowledge and for a shared love for who we are as a K-State community. So I'll leave you with those 2 next step items if anyone is interested on how to do that. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dr. Elmore. We really appreciate you being here. Next, we're going to be moving into any questions. Is there anybody who has any questions for Dr. Elmore? If you do, please just indicate so in the chat. Senator Bruce.
Okay. Dr. Elmore, thank you so much for coming. You know, I love hearing you speak, so I'm glad you came to Senate tonight to give us some well-needed information. My question to you is, when you say romanticize, you talked about that a little bit, romanticizing diversity and inclusion. So when you say romanticize, can you clarify how SGA should make their diversity and inclusion goals more likely to be achieved and not something that is romanticized? Like, can you explain to us how we could make them more realistically able to be achieved?
I guess my question is, what are some of the goals?
That's a good question too. Back to me. Honestly, like being just a senator in SGA, I don't necessarily know the goals that SGA has for diversity and inclusion. I joined SGA, and then you talked about this, which was kind of, I thought was interesting, about what do you need with diversity and inclusion? Do you need faces or do you need actual change, right? And so I joined SGA, and I think that I have the first part of diversity and inclusion down, being the face for it. As far as like inclusion efforts, I don't quite know what kind of goals SGA has in mind, but I just know that I'm here to represent and speak on behalf of diversity and inclusion.
Well, I guess I would say, you know, when we look at diversity, it's a really hard process to define. So I do understand that. I work with different companies and organizations who try to. And just a little bit about my background, I did go to a historical Black college for my undergraduate degree. So our form or term of diversity may not, you know, be like more Black people, right? Because we are a predominantly Black institution, but that might be, you know, people from rural areas or, you know, socioeconomic status. So there's a variety of different things. So when I'm asking about, well, what are we trying to accomplish? You know, understanding that we are at a predominantly white institution, race and ethnicity is likely to be a part of that, but definitely not a complete definition of that. And so when SGA is looking at that, that may be step one. And that's why I mentioned you've got to kind of understand where you are as an organization on your own trajectory to know, you know, where you at are on that spectrum. So when I think about SGA, it may be that we need more people from communities of color to be a part, to bring that community knowledge to the table so that we can create policy and execute in a way that is conducive for all who participate in this Wildcat community. So when I look at that, sometimes as a person of color, you might take on that badge and say, well, I'm doing that because I visibly am diverse, but your experience may not be, you know? And so I look at it and say, what experiences are needed at SGA's table? What is it that SGA is wanting to accomplish in that? And what does that look like for the success and future of SGA? So I don't want people to negate that, you know, we don't need people of color or anything like that, because the visible aspect is just that, the visible, but it really comes with, because of our country and the way that our society is, that has shaped particular experiences based on that. So that's why you can look at a person and make a major assumption that their experience may be different, but it may not be. So that's something that I think is important. The romanticization of it is when it is this, we just need more people of color or of whatever background to be at the table. And it's going to be great because, you know, diversity, it's better for the bottom line. Diversity is great for the thought, but think deeper. When you bring diversity of thought, that means all thoughts aren't the same. And there can be some very polarized ideologies about that. But that is our democracy, to be able to listen, to debate, to compromise, to get on a journey of agreement. That takes time. That's frustrating. It's hurtful. It's exhausting, so are we ready to sign up for that? When I look at SGA, you've got policies in place, you've got procedures in place. Those systems are in place to be able to have fair debate, people with opportunity to speak, but it's people who have to do the compromise. It's people who have to create that welcoming environment. And if the people do not have a true understanding of what they're asking for, it becomes very isolating for someone who does not fit that social norm that had already been set to come in and fully contribute. And then there's the human aspect of it's easier to assimilate than to always go upstream. People who fight the stream constantly, no one really knows the battle on the back end. No one really understands the turmoil and the isolation and the internal discussion that you go in is like, is it worth it? And that's important for everybody to know, because depending on what situation or what cause is really important to you, where you are willing to be the one going against the grain, those barriers of entry and the ability to stand when everybody else is moving in the same direction is extremely hard. But if you can recognize as an organization that is a trait to admire, even though it can get on your nerves, even though you're like, you can't come to my house because I just can't do it, I need some time off, it's still very important for the organization to be able to move forward. It's still very important for us as a people to be able to experience that so that we can be a people who can listen and compromise and make better decisions that are impactful for all, if that is the goal. My next questions won't be that long. I know I ain't got that much time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, before we continue, we have 5 minutes for questions and time did expire. Is there a motion in the chat to extend Dr. Elmore's time? Please indicate the amount of time that you want to extend it by. Chair Rodriguez moved to extend time by 10 minutes. Caucus Leader Phillips seconded. Are there any objections to that? Seeing none, we'll return to questions. Chair Booz, you were next on the list for questions.
Yeah, Dr. Elmore, thank you for coming in, or well, not coming in personally, but doing the same thing virtually. I thought you made a really important point on like diversity, and adding more points of view can cause conflict. And even though it's worth it. And I was wondering if you had any like indications that, an organization is handling that well or is handling that poorly. I would assume handling it well would involve compromise and, listening to people, but I was wondering if you had anything else along that line.
Honestly, I'm unmuted. Honestly, you have to look at it from a longevity aspect. So when you want to say as an organization doing it well, you got to look at the track record, like looking at it from a whole, so that you can see where there has been some progression, maybe some back. So my example would be K-State. So an important piece for me is when I'm talking to alumni, especially our alumni of color from the 60s, 70s, it could be a whole different conversation because there was a lot of protest, unrest, all that kind of stuff. It's similar to right now. And what I had to do was say, K-State's first Black graduate was 1899, 36 years after the emancipation for slavery, right? So I'm like, okay, but we're a land-grant institution, but what that means is land from indigenous populations that did not have a choice in their land being taken. Okay, so we got a good, we got a negative, and then you progress and you say, well, we had 7 men and 7 women graduate in the first class. So we're looking at that trajectory. Then we look at, well, then you couldn't live on campus as a person of color. You had to live on UMA, or you couldn't swim in the swimming pool. But then K-State was the first to break the segregation barrier for sports, so what does the track record look like for this organization? I'm never looking for perfect, but I am looking for progression. And so I would say, what does that look like? Now, if you are new to the team, like new on this thing, like let's talk about what's happening right now. When the George Floyd thing happened, all these organizations had, you know, Black Lives Matter, We Stand with Black people, whatever it is that they wanted to say. And some people got that work, and other people, they got applauded. And it's like, well, how is that, right? And the thing is, if you're new to this, you should expect people to side-eye you, because you don't have no track record of if you're doing it for the current fame or if this was a part of who you are at your fabric. Everybody has to jump in at some point, but everybody doesn't have the same elasticity or reliability that you really are about this work. That is what it is. And so that's how I look at measurement. I call it surface validation. I never really look at the outside. You know, something for me, I'm like, I don't just receive Black people as Black people who know diversity. That's not my thing, because I need to know your track record, because there are racist Black people too, just as Asian, just as Native, just as white. Everybody has the capacity. So who am I to just give it to you because you look like me, or because in our country it has been, you know, projected as something different. Now, when we talk about a collective conscience and the track record of that, that's different. But as an individual, I have to remove that, and I have to look at that person to be able to make some determination. So my answer to you is, it takes time. And the question is, if we're talking about SGA, where are you? You know, where are you on your history line? Where are you? You know, you have good times and you have bad times, or are you continuing your times?
All right, thanks.
Next for questions, Senator Levi.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, cool. My green screen's actually working. All right. So kind of backtracking a bit to something that was mentioned earlier by Dr. Elmore. Well, when you're talking about trying to initiate some form of diversity and making sure it's not some blanket form of diversity or some form of tokenism or just romanticized diversity. For, like, say in the context of the committee that I'm sitting on, the DEI committee, would it be considered an overreach or something out of jurisdiction if we started looking at cases involving like first generation students, even though there's already a separate like first generation organization, or if we were to focus on things involving like socioeconomic background, just because there's like been this shift in what affects whether or not people go to college. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out, when it comes to diversity of thought, what are the best ways to ensure that that's what you're going for, as opposed to initiating some blanket form of diversity?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's one I struggle with because
it's hard.
It is hard. The part that's hard is nobody wants to say it out loud what you need to do. Because if you say something out loud, then it's like you're keeping somebody out, and nobody wants to feel left out. But if you're on a committee, you got to be real. What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to measure? Now, within every category, there are so many intersectionalities with that. So if we're looking at LGBT, are we looking at Latino, Latinx, LGBT? You know, like that is a whole different subset, even though we can say LGBT overall, but could that go with more white male LGBT? You know, though there's still differences within that. So for a DEI, you know, it's like not wanting to leave anybody out, so you include everybody and you get nothing done. But the reality is we have limited resources and we have measurements and goals that we have to focus on. So you have to be very nuanced about what are we trying to accomplish now. And how long are we going to give ourselves to be able to see some measurement? And that doesn't mean kick everybody else to the curb. That just means that you need to have some programming that still continues to pay attention and to do work with those communities. But if you're trying to really throw some heavy resources and do some focused intentionality, you got to be real and clear with the team. That may not be for public consumption, but you do need to be clear on the team. And that's why it's very important to be able to build those relationships. That's why it's important to be able to understand that when you bring diversity of thought, diversity of background, or whatever it is, that, you know, you have to take the time to build that relationship, because you can be outed, right? Because you're trying to get these things done. And then it's like, what are you going to do? You better have a real reason of why you're doing what you're doing. I tell my team all the time, you know, the work that I do is sometimes risky, and it sucks because it's like, I'm just showcasing different people from K-State, but I get probably a lot of the backlash of comments. And so when I started, I had to work with my team, and I said, we have to say why we are doing it to ourselves. You know, if your intention is just because you just need to sprinkle the look, then you deserve to get ate up. But why are we doing what we're doing? So when someone has something to say, which they will, you are comfortable with why you decided. You know, like, we can't have a forever agenda with everything on it.
Yes.
That's why I say run when the stars align for your thing, because it's going to be somebody else's turn. And that's important, you know, and to not lump everybody together is really important, because sometimes you drag other groups along and make it slower because you're trying to always catch everybody up on doing stuff when there's some different needs. And so I would just say it's the nuance. You got to get real about your core intentionality. That's why being a chair of a committee is extremely important, because you set the agenda. And you got to stand with it, and you got to get your people on board with it. And
I'm not the chair, I'm just in the committee.
I'm not saying you, but whoever it is, you know, like, that's what it is. And you have that discussion. So not to really give you a detailed answer of like, should you include first gen or rural or whatever, the thing is, within the populations that your group mission is intended to do, all those pieces are there. So are you paying attention to that? Not the master status. And that's a term I'll throw out. A master status, which we all have, is, my example, my master status is Black. Then it goes woman, then it goes, you know, whatever. Someone else's master status may be LGBT, then, you know, their race or their socioeconomic status, whatever that is. And so you might say our master status focuses on people of color, but you have to look at all the other aspects that are important. Once the master status feels like it's been addressed, or at least there's actual movement, then people move to the next one that they feel needs some attention. And so it's always an ever moving target. And as a group, you need to be able to understand that, because it's a never ending fix, but that's okay, because we are a growing people.
Thank you.
So time has again expired for Dr. Elmer's questions. There's one more in the chat. So I would entertain another motion if someone would like to type that out right now. Chair Booz moved to extend time by 5 minutes, and that was seconded by Senator Hurd. Are there any objections to that? Seeing none, Dr. Elmore, you'll have 5 more minutes for questions. And then Senator Hurd, I believe you had the next question in order.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Elmore, for speaking with us today. Very insightful. I have a question about what type of advice would you have for members of SGA and how they can address diversity without going to that one student of color or person of color in the room to get an opinion or an idea on how to make different students feel welcome? Because I've had experiences here where they'll target, or someone will come to me and ask me what they can do to make other students of color want to join SGA or come along. And how could they go about asking a similar question without choosing one student to be the voice for all students of color?
Yeah. Well, one, I would say definitely become a part of the How to Be an Anti-Racist Mastermind experience, because we definitely will break down all of that. The issue with that is the layer of assumptions that are put on that person. You know, if someone comes to me and says, tell me about what it feels like to be Black in Manhattan, you know, or whatever it is, like the assumption is that I know. Like you never even gave me an opportunity to express that I don't know. You know, you just assume, or for something larger, like K-State is an ag school. So if I met somebody, I'm from California, and someone's like, oh, well, you know, are you on a farm? And it's just like, I'm a business major. I mean, why did you assume that I'm an ag major just because it's a agriculture school? Like there's a whole lot of different people, like K-State's known to be, but that doesn't mean that I fit that overarching statistic about, you know, Kansas State University. And so when we look at that, every day we make assumptions, and we layer our assumptions on somebody else, and we take away their ability to express who they are. So when someone's trying to ask about how to do something within a particular community, you're actually taking away their opportunity to be an individual. I may, and you might meet 30,000 people who function within, like, let's say the Black community, and that's right. And you want, your brain is trained to create a bond to say that matches. But we as a people, we have to work toward paying attention to that bias, so then we can operate slower to not make that bias assumption. And so in the How to Be an Anti-Racist aspect, it really is talking about how to break down those things. And then you say, well, but I really want to know. I really want to know what we can do. It's really important. And so my second thing is you have to have a relationship with people first. I have a lot of really great friends now, and I'm open, very, very open, but they had to work for the relationship, just like I have to work for their relationship. I would never walk up to a person on the side of the street and be like, you know, you look 40, why you ain't got no kids yet? That's rude. So I look at the same things like, so you look Asian. So what's up with the Asian community? Why they don't come to our stuff? I don't know you, and I don't have to give you no information because you didn't work for this relationship. So if people really want to do the work and figure out how to embrace more people, then learn what it feels like to be new to a community. That's universal. What are the barriers of entry into SGA? Do you have traditions? Do you have, you know, things that you do that when you're apart for so long, you just do it, you know? Those things are not welcoming to the new person on the team. And so nobody wants to feel like the outsider. They want to get included first. And once they feel like they got the scene, then they want to show their uniqueness. That's just human people. And so that's what I would say to, you know, for those who are, you know, isolated or, you know, pointed out to be a representative. But then on the flip side, people need to be careful on speaking for the community as well. You know, sometimes I find that there are people who look like me who feel like they have the ability to speak for me. I'm like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can speak to statistics that are happening, you know, in a collective, but to say I know, it's wrong. I can speak for myself. I can speak for what I experience. I can speak to the stats that I see that are happening within people who actively identify and participate in the community. So when I talk about that from a resource aspect, from a policy making aspect, I know there's a wealth gap within the Black community. But that doesn't mean that when I see Senator Hurd, that she is low socioeconomic status. That don't mean the same thing. And so we have to practice. That takes practice. And so you've got to find your way at K-State to practice getting rid of it, because it is innate in who we are, but that is still not acceptable. We have to work towards identifying it and then slowing down our actions so then we don't continue to fall into those traps over and over. And that takes lots of work and energy, but be willing to do the work. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
With that, I believe I caught up on all questions in the chat, and time did expire again. So unless there are any further questions, I want to give it just a second, just in case. Seeing none, Dr. Elmore, thank you so much for coming in tonight. We really appreciate you coming to speak.
Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful evening and the rest of your meeting.
You as well, thank you. Our next open period speaker is Natalie Moyer, and she is the president of the Union Programming Council.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me in today. Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Elmore. I've gotten to know her over the course of these past few years as a member of Student Alumni Board. And I just want to say she did an awesome job. I really appreciated getting to hear you speak. I also want to thank SGA for having me tonight. I know that you all are pretty busy, so it was super exciting to be part of this agenda. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Natalie Moyer, and I'm the current president of Union Program Council, also known as UPC. And we just wanted to come tonight to tell you a little bit more about our organization, what we do, and hopefully, start to forge a relationship with SGA, because we don't get to see you all very often, and thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to see you. So with that, I just want to talk about a little bit about what we do. And so I'll have Nathan help me out here with the clicks, but if you could go to the next screen for me, please. Awesome. So what we do, so UPC, we create events for students by students. And what that looks like is every year we plan about 150 events or more every school year to cater to our campus community. And we have served as the main source of Union entertainment since 1956. So we've been here a little while, and we love to provide creative and leadership opportunities for students. So we have 10 different committees, and each one we have different themes or ideas that we focus on. So for example, we have a committee for music where we get to plan concerts and live music events. We also have a group called Multicultural that allows events to be created with different cultures in mind and allowing different voices to be heard. And our main mission within UPC is to provide educational, cultural, and social experiences for students in the K-State community. So while we are based here on campus, we are also open to individuals of the Manhattan community, and we love to include others and have them join and see what we do. So if you could go to the next screen for me, please. Thank you. So I just thought that this would be kind of fun for you all to see some of the events that we've brought on campus. So a few acts that you may know, back in April of 2018, we brought Nick Jonas. 2 years ago, we brought Lauv. And then last school year, we brought an up-and-coming artist named Josie Dunn. And so I put this on here not because those are the only types of acts that we bring. These are just some of the concerts that we've had. But Union Program Council is known for creating these large-scale events and essentially creating opportunities for students to have memorable experiences on campus. So if you could go to the last, yep, there we go. So I wanted to share some upcoming events with you all. So this year we're doing things a little bit different. We're doing a hybrid with the events that we have. So some of our events will be virtual completely. Others we have in person. So actually tomorrow we're going to be having a virtual cooking class, and this is put on by our after hours committee. And as you can see there, it'll be from 7 to 8 p.m. and this will be online. And this is just a fun way. If you like to cook, if you don't, if you're terrible at it, if you're still learning, come join us. We'd love to have you. And a fun little side note from that, we do have goodie bags available for you all, SGA members. So if you stop by our office tomorrow, we're located on the ground floor of the Student Union. You can come by, pick up a goodie bag, They'll have face masks worn just like this, along with an oven mitt so that you can prepare for that virtual cooking class. We also have a poster sale next week on Tuesday, so come check that out. Also on that night, we have quite a few things on Tuesday. We have our first UPC All meeting. This will be held in person in the K Ballroom of the Student Union. We will also have a virtual option if you would like to attend that way. And also we have our open mic night on September 1st as well. And that will be an in-person event in the Wildcat Chamber. So if you're musical, or you just like to perform, come see us. And if you could go to my last screen, yep. So here I've put some of our contact information down. If you would like to get in touch with us, or if you'd like to get in touch with me personally, my email is nmoyer, M-O-Y-E-R 00@ksu.edu. Or if you'd like to shoot UPC a message, you can email us at upc@ksu.edu. Again, if you ever have questions, or if you just have an idea of an event that you think would be cool or you would like to see on campus, feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to see what we can do. So that is all that I have for you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much again for letting me hop on here and speak. And yeah, that is all that I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Natalie Moyer? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming in, Natalie, and just for sharing some more about UPC. We really appreciate you taking the time to come in.
Thank you for having me.
With that, are there any further open period speakers? Senator Bruce.
Okay, sorry, I unmuted my camera, that was funny. But I was gonna talk on behalf of Ashton for the Student Code of Conduct Review Committee. And so she had a few things she wanted me to share with you all. So right now there's a committee that was formed to rewrite the Student Code of Conduct. I'm saying this not like I'm unsure, I'm saying this to make sure I'm saying it correctly. So we are rewriting the Student Code of Conduct. And so some things she wants you guys to know is that the committee was formed. We're in an info gathering phase. So the last meeting that we had, we went through all of the Big 12 schools and looked at their student code of conducts. And we found out what we liked about those student codes, what we didn't like about those student codes. We wrote down the pros and the cons, and we're continuing to gather information like that. We're reaching out. So we left the meeting with homework to reach out to student orgs so we can speak at their group sessions via Zoom or in person to get more student knowledge and get more student feedback for the student code review. As well as we have a survey coming up that we need you all to advertise, being senators and everything that does with SGA. So being a part of SGA, we need your guys to pub the survey that we're having to come out, and this survey will also be more feedback on the Student Code of Conduct review. And the changes have to pass through Senate. So whatever changes we decide to make through the student code will have to pass through Senate. And that's why it's important for you guys to be aware of the process of what's happening, but also for you guys to share the survey and just be more in the know. Also, if you guys have any feedback, sorry, I keep saying guys, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in the chat, if you all have any information that you want us to know in regards to Student Code of Conduct review, go ahead and email Ashton and she'll get you guys right. So see, I said it again, get everyone right. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Senator Bruce about the Student Code of Conduct Committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for sharing, Kara. We really appreciate that. Are there any further first open period speakers? Seeing none, we will continue on with our agenda for the evening. Next on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes. The minutes were sent out earlier this week. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? If I can get a so moved in the chat. Moved by Cox Leah Phillips, seconded by Senator Hurd. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved. Before we go on, I do have one little announcement that I want to make about the minutes. Speaker Pro Tempore Billman and I added a little secret into the minutes for this week. So we said that anyone who emailed us that they were excited about coming to Senate this Thursday, we would order Insomnia cookies for. So I would just like to give a big shout out to Chair Booz and Senator Hurd for being the only people who emailed us that they were excited for Senate. So I hope that they're really enjoying their cookies right now because we timed them to be delivered right about this time. So everyone, be paying attention to future things as they're coming through. We hope to share some more treats with everyone else in the coming semester. Next on the agenda, we'll move down to announcements for the week. First off, first announcement is that all SGA meetings are now either entirely online or being administered in a hybridized format, so you can still attend from your home. If you are ever interested in attending any SGA meeting, please just make sure to reach out to the chair or organizer of that committee you're meeting so they can get you the Zoom link. And again, we really appreciate everyone's patience with everything being in flux and changing so much right now. Number two, throughout the semester, please send any pictures you take of SGA to our communications director, Marissa Lux. Her email is included in the agenda so that she can post them on our social medias. This can even include fun little selfies at you at Zoom Senate. So feel free to send those to her. Third, the SGA intern program will be beginning next week on Thursday, September 3rd. The intern program will be offering an in-person meeting in Wildcat Chamber, but to ensure that we have social distancing at that meeting, there will be two different sections of the program that are offered. So interns are being asked to sign up ahead of time so that way we know numbers beforehand. And please continue to nominate anyone who you think would enjoy the experience and would enjoy learning more about SGA overall at the following link on the agenda. Fourth, the at-large committee application for SGA committees and university committees is now live. These applications will be due by September 10th at 5 p.m. If you are interested in serving on any additional committees or you know anyone else who would like to and would be good at representing the student voice, please encourage them to apply at the following link. We have a wide variety of committees that we need filled, including tuition and fee strategies, diversity programming committee. All of our current standing committees take at-large applicants. There's a whole bunch of them. I barely scraped the tip of the iceberg. So please, please, please encourage anyone you know who you think would enjoy serving on a committee to fill out that application. Another one is that starting next week, I'll be reaching out directly to student senators and scheduling one-on-one meetings with those of you that I haven't met with yet to discuss SGA and to get to know you better. So this would just be our time to brainstorm about SGA and go over anything that you might have questions about. 6 proxies for this evening is Croslow for Kid and Grolmes for Grills. And number 7, the SGA members of the week this week are the members of the Code of Conduct Review Committee, who have been meeting since early August to work on reforming our Code of Conduct for the betterment of the student body. That committee is chaired by Attorney General Ashton Hess, and the members who contributed to it include Annalee Hobbs, Grace Wheeler, Brenda Hurd, Natasha Norwood, Kara Bruce, Vedant Kulkarni, Abigail Archibong, Tyler Burns, Chelsea Arnold, Kaya Crocker, Michaela Ross, Michaela Fleming, Miranda Urban, Chrissy Carr, Shaylin Ward, Bryn Carlson, and Logan Ragsdale. Thank you so much to everybody who is putting in so much time and being so dedicated to those changes. We really appreciate your service. You can see our upcoming events calendar on the announcement page for committee meetings next week. And then our quote of the week this week is everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And that's from John Lennon. So with that, we'll move on to the next part of our agenda, which includes commendations. We have one commendation this week. So can I get a so moved in the chat to consider Resolution 13? Moved by Chair Brown and seconded by Caucus Leader Diaz de Leon. So I'm actually the author of this one, so I'll read it. So Resolution 2021-13, commendation to Heather Reed. by Maggie Billman, Nathan Bothwell, Anna Heatherman, Ashton Hess, Annalie Hobbs, Ollie Carmali, Lane Lundeen, Peter Moyer, Jansen Penny, Carson Chumland, and Tel Whitmer. Whereas Heather Reed worked at Kansas State University for 17 years, with 16 of those in the Office of Student Life, where she served as Assistant Director, Assistant Dean, Associate Dean, and Assistant Vice President. Whereas Heather advised Kansas State University Student Governing Association for the past 8 years, where she served as the primary advisor to the KSU SGA Executive Branch. Whereas during her time as an SGA advisor, Heather also advised the Senate Executive Committee, the Joint Committee on Officer Compensation, and the entire SGA leadership team. And whereas Heather Reed retired on June 12, 2020. Be it resolved that Section 1, KSU SGA wishes Heather Reed a happy retirement and all the best for her future. KSU SGA thanks Heather for the contributions she's made to the students of Kansas State University, and her years of commitment to student success will not soon be forgotten. Heather's knowledge, advice, and compassion will be greatly missed. Section 2, upon passage of this resolution by Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Heather Reed and to University President Richard Myers. Are there any questions or corrections to this piece of legislation? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion to approve Resolution 13 unanimously. Moved by Chair Booz and seconded by Caucus Leader Carlson. Are there any objections to approving Resolution 13? Seeing none, Resolution 13 will stand approved. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we will be moving on to committee reports. So are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Booz, you have the floor.
Yeah, I promised you a presentation on the legislative process, and so this is it.
Give me just a second to get that pulled up.
Yeah, I know Nathan is going over some parts of this in his one-on-ones, and I also know that, you know, if you're not a new senator, this may be some review, but I wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. And so, yeah, I created this. So first, I wanted to start off with kind of a little bit about writing a piece of legislation. Starting with, you know, how do you find things that you want to write about? Like for me, it's always been, you know, reading the governing documents, reading the statutes, talking to students about what they feel is a problem. And then just topics that you're passionate about. Like I'm passionate about voting systems outside of SGA. And so like, if you can bring that in, that's really cool. Also optional, but something that helps is finding a senator or maybe even an entire committee who's interested in similar topics. You know, that can be a great, those people can be great to bounce ideas off of, or even to bounce drafts off of, especially once you get something written. So next slide, please. Thanks. Then you'll download the templates that are in the legislation folder in Org Central. I'm going to show you later where to get those. And so I'm not going to show you right now, but in particular, you've been receiving these from Nathan as well in your one-on-ones, I believe. And I over the summer edited the templates, added one for governing documents amendments, and substantially revised the resolution template as well. And so I'm also going to be working on a new style guide with Senate Operations Committee as well. I'm not sure when I'm going to get that done. I'm not sure where that is on my priority list, but I want to do it this year. So next slide. Yeah, and so these are the two the two templates as well. They kind of tell you more about like where to do things. So like the whereas clauses are where you put various justifications for what you're doing. And then the sections are where you actually put where you're doing. So next slide, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, once you're writing, then write reasons for the statement or the changes that you want to enact in the whereas clauses. Make that statement or changes in the body. And finally, I always try to get other senators to look over my drafts, people who I know and give me help me give feedback and polish it. And sometimes they can even catch like, hey, the way you're going about this really doesn't, probably won't get much support. You might want to change how you're writing it all the way down to grammatical errors. So that I found that to be really helpful. And now, this is an example from last year of a bylaws amendment. You can see that there's multiple authors. The whereas clauses are talking about like why we should edit the bylaws related to the legislative branch. And then the sectional clauses are actually making those edits, italicizing the new stuff and striking the old stuff that is being removed. Yeah, and now I wanted to go over the legislative process after you submit as well, just so maybe to demystify a little. So it was submitted on Org Central by 5 p.m. on the Monday before Senate. And as I said, there are 2 exceptions to that deadline if you explain why the legislation needs to be introduced immediately, or if you come to Senate Ops, which is at 8 p.m. on that Monday, and kind of present your legislation. That'll just help the committee to get an idea of the intent of your legislation. And if we end up finding something that really doesn't make sense with what we think you're trying to do, we don't have to email you and sort it out that way. So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and so this is how you get to that documents folder if you haven't done it before. So you click on the Student Governing Association tab on your homepage. And then you'll have to click on the Manage Organization button in the top right. We actually, oh yeah, next slide. And then that drops you on a page that really doesn't tell you anything other than how many members in the primary contact. So you have to click on the hamburger button in the top left, and then that opens a menu that should have the documents item in it. I have more stuff, but you'll only have documents there. Then you'll double click on legislation right there. And then to get to the templates, you can click on the templates folder down here. And then you can click on the submit to Senate operations and then click add file to upload your file to Senate operations. Yeah, and so then after you put it in that folder, Senate operations works on editing that legislation as part of their meeting on Mondays. We make sure that bills and resolutions conform to a similar style. We are explicitly prevented from making changes to the meaning or what the resolution explicitly says or what the bill says. And so if we do, please let us know and we can revert it. After that, the speaker adds it to the agenda. And then in the introduction, as you've seen, the author will read the bill. SGA as a whole has the chance to ask questions, and then the bill is referred to one or more committees for a debate and a possible recommendation, except for things like commendations, which you just saw earlier. Yeah, and so then after the committee reviews it, the legislation is often referred back, although the committee can hold it. The committee can do 3 different things: favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation, as well as a vote. Then during final action, the resolution is debated, amended, and voted on with all of these people that have speaking privileges. But it's also important to note that you can defer your speaking rights to pretty much anyone else. And I would expect, like, if you're someone who doesn't have speaking rights, like, I'd love to give you speaking rights, and I think a lot of people would as well. And so then after final action, the speaker or the president sign or don't. The president in particular does have a veto power and also can just avoid signing things and they can become law anyway. If it's a funding bill, our accountant, Amy Lee, signs it. And if it's a resolution, the speaker pro tempore sends it to the listed recipients on the resolution. So yeah, first, anyone have any questions? And if you have any private questions or any questions afterwards, you can always reach me at my K-State email.
Are there any questions for Chair Booz about his presentation? Seeing none, thank you so much for sharing and giving us that overview, Andrew. Next up, Chair Jonak.
Hi. Sorry, it's really dark in here.
There we go. Hello. Okay, I just wanted to give a quick little update on my committee. If you're in the travel allocations committee, I will be sending you an email here tomorrow probably. I don't think we have any legislation yet because like anyone like applying because no one's traveling right now. But something I wanted to update is if you want to advertise to groups, if they're applying for online conventions or things that require like a fee to join like over Zoom, we are now covering that in travel allocations as well, since there's less people traveling. And then I'm going to, Nathan, can I share my screen?
For security reasons, I am the only one who has screen share capabilities.
Okay, can you show, I was gonna show how to get to it. Can you just go to the SJ
Yes,
website?
I can pull that up and show it as you're talking.
It's pretty easy, but.
Give me just a second.
Definitely advertise to groups that you're involved in and groups that you know on campus, because a lot of people aren't aware of the funding that we have available to them. Okay, so it's literally right there in the forms. If you go to SGA on Org Central, it's right down there in the forms. Super easy. It's like 3 pages long. It'll take you like 10 minutes to fill out at the most. So does anybody have any questions for me?
Are there any questions for Travel Allocations Chair Jonek?
Okay, well, thanks.
Seeing none, thank you so much, Carissa. Next, Chair Brown, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Madison Brown, and I'm the Privilege Fee Chair. I just wanted to give a little update about Privilege Fee. Obviously, enrollment has been decreasing, and with a lot of classes going online, there is a lot of students who are not paying the full privilege fee. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that in the coming weeks, there will be lots of discussions about the privilege fee. And so if you would like to be involved in that and hear some of that information, feel free to email me or come to the committee meeting Monday at 5:30 p.m. I can email you the Zoom link if you would like to come virtually, or it will be at Wildcat Chamber. But I will be going over all of the possible changes and information about like our current financial status at that meeting.
Are there any questions for Chair Brown? Seeing none, thank you so much for sharing. Are there any other committee chairs who would like to give a report? Seeing none, we'll now move on to directors' reports. Are there any directors who would like to give a report? President Whitmer.
My bad. Definitely meant to make that in the public chat. Oops. Okay. Well, gosh, it is so good to be back. I know I've had the opportunity to visit with a few of you or a lot of you over the last 2 weeks, and gosh, it's just been a long ride since last spring, and I'm so excited to be back with everybody. Just even seeing everyone's face tonight, it really makes a big difference, I think. So definitely excited that we're kicking the term off, and I know we got a lot of challenges ahead of us, but definitely just excited to be a part of the process. So a brief update on what the executive branch has been up to this summer. So we've played a pretty heavy role with administration and the university in preparing for in-person classes and opening up campus. We had meetings literally every day since the spring that we were able to play a small role in and provide input. During those, we had a big win with maintaining tuition and keeping tuition flat for the year. So that was something we made significant progress on. But other than that, just being able to provide student input as we look to give everything due diligence in opening campus up. So it has not been easy, but we've made some, again, significant progress. So that's been a lot of our focus. Obviously, we're kind of thrown into that just like everyone in SGA. So that's what we've been up to. Other than that, there's going to be a lot of opportunities this semester to work with Cabinet. We're introducing our priorities tonight for the executive branch. And if you want to get involved or want to help Cabinet directors implement their objectives, feel free to reach out. And again, there's going to be several opportunities to help further those goals if you want to take an active role in that. So the main point I want you to walk away with tonight, though, is we all have got to do a better job if we want to stay in person. So our actions really matter. People are watching what all of us do, and we have a really big ability to impact and influence our student body. So we all have a role to play, and I just encourage you to continue to take that seriously and make sure that we can stay in person and get the most out of our campus this semester and in the future. So in conclusion for my report, Speaker Bothwell very eloquently put it this way in our Senate exec meeting on Tuesday: this sucks, but and I know this isn't exactly how any of us envisioned this year, but I really believe there's a lot of opportunities, and you know, we're going to have significant challenges that we've got to cross, and we're also going to have the opportunity to make really meaningful and long-lasting change for students, for future students, and I think we can recognize that. And even though this isn't the situation we were expecting to be in, now's the time to develop all of our leadership abilities and give us a great opportunity to grow and collaborate with one another. So we're going to get through this, and we're going to do it together. So that's all I got. Please keep doing your part in making sure campus is healthy and safe and strong. And I'm just excited to be back with everybody. Thanks.
Are there any questions for President Whitmer? Senator Hurd.
Hi, President Whitmer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what is the significant progress that you all have made throughout the summer and the time period from when we were moved to remote online learning until today? Because I haven't really seen many updates. So if you could kind of just give us a quick little summary synopsis on what those significant progress things are, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously, progress is relative, and I think we've done as much as we can do to offer our advice and consent to the administration when it comes to offering our perspective and opening up campus and making sure that students are heard and their concerns are shared with the administration. But that's primarily what I've been referring to is we've played a consistently active role in opening up campus and being a part of that process.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, President Whitmer. Are there any further directors who would like to give a report? Speaker Pro Tempore Billman, you have the floor.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I just want to give you all an update about what I've been doing since I've been back in the office, as well as an update to the platforms that I ran on, because I think that in SGA we need to hold each other accountable. So I also, please hold me accountable during questions when I'm answering them for you. if I don't cover something clearly enough in this report. I'm going to try to be a little quick because we've already been here for an hour and a half. So just going in order of what I ran on, one of my first ideas was no dumb ideas, hours in the office. So I'm going to have my schedule posted on the door along with Speaker Bothwell's schedule after this weekend. I wanted to settle in and finalize my school and work schedule. Just something to be aware of, we are not allowed to have more than 3 people in our offices at a time, and we all have to be wearing masks at that time. So you're more than welcome to come in. Just make sure there's not more than 3 of us, or we will go somewhere else to meet. Another thing is monthly informational sessions, and Speaker Bothwell will also talk about this in his report in a little bit, but we have sort of decided to, oh, thank you so much, Speaker Bothwell. Union 117 is our office. First floor of the Union, if you like walk in by Chick-fil-A and then hang a right and then go like by Wildcat Chambers, but before you get to Wildcat Chambers, or no, hang a left when you walk in and then hang a right through the CSI office. Yes. Sorry, okay. Meshing together Speaker Bothwell and I's platforms. So one of his platforms was professional development, and one of mine was boosting SGA knowledge / professional development with monthly informational sessions. So once we get settled into the groove of Senate meetings, we will start presenting either, I think we're going to do it probably during second open period, just little professional development, leadership development forums. And then the next week, I will have some sort of optional Zoom meeting or something that folks can come to, and we can learn more about what we talked about for a brief moment in Senate. I'm probably going to send out a poll or something to see what time works best for everyone, because I know that we're all busy people. Moving on to college caucus outreach weeks. My original goal was that each college caucus would have a week of outreach within their college in the first semester of us being back. Well, a lot of folks aren't in class right now in person, and I don't want to put any of the caucus leaders or any of the senators at risk doing in-person outreach, so I left it up to them. Some of them are choosing to continue with Zoom and like creative outreach ideas, and some of them, are choosing to wait until the spring, which is totally fine. I want people to be as comfortable as they can be. But what I am encouraging caucus leaders to do is write lots of commendations within their caucuses, really checking up on you senators, making sure that you're feeling like you understand what's going on, and if you aren't, putting you in touch with the resources that you need, and just, being there to like professionally love on you. So yeah, that's what's going on there. So if you have questions, we'll have caucus time here in a little bit. Talk to your caucus leader about it. And then educational videos was my next platform that I ran on. So I have released one that I emailed out this week, just going over the agenda with you all, how to move a few basic motions for that. More of those will be coming, and I'm actually partnering with Communications Director Lux on that. So if you have any ideas for things that you want to learn more about, please email me at maggiek@ksu.edu. I'll slap that in the chat in a second. But yeah, more of those are coming. This one was like really long and boring and not great, but they will be a lot better in the future. So up next, this is the one that I feel was weakest when I ran on it, and I want to be really open and honest with you guys about it. And that is the campus issue response team. So I think when I thought of this idea, it was like, well, I thought of this idea with a couple of other people. And whenever we talked about it, it was to provide just like a board of people who would come out with a response each time that maybe there was a conflict on campus regarding maybe a national election or an instance of hate speech or hate action, and they would help formulate a response to that. There are a lot of things upon further reflection that I am not really a fan of with this idea. One of them being is this even something that we need? Is there already another committee that already exists that could do something like that? And then another thing that I'm personally grappling with is like the fact that when something like that happens that affects real people and that hurts real people is a statement all that we need. And so I've done a lot of talking with people about how to move this into more of an action-based and more of a proactive committee. So I'm going to turn this over to you all to please come to me with suggestions for maybe a committee that you see that needs to be formed. Maybe it's one that goes over the governing documents and searches out places in the governing documents that aren't equitable. Maybe it's putting together a board of students who hold letter writing campaigns to local legislators. I don't know. I want to continue with this idea because it's something that I advertise for myself, but I think the ideas need to grow and change as time goes on. So please come up to me with ideas that you have. Some things that I didn't run on, but that I am legislated to do that I've been doing are DPC and scheduling open period speakers. I don't think I'm legislated to schedule open period speakers, but that's part of my job. So DPC, the committee will be formed by tomorrow. It's supposed to be formed by next Friday, but I just wanted it done this Friday so that I could build relationships with the committee. And if you know anyone who wants to apply for DPC funding, the deadline for Q2 is September 4th. I will be making a K-State announcement next week for that as well. K-State today, I think I said that, sorry. Next up is open period speakers. You should have received a survey from me on that, just asking your opinion on open period speakers. And you guys gave me some really, really good information. About half of you said that you find open period speakers really useful, and the other half said that you sometimes find them useful. Overwhelmingly, a lot of you said that you prefer when we only have one. We had two tonight. I apologize for that. I won't, oh, sorry, I dropped my pen. That won't happen again, but we had folks offer to speak to us this evening, so I wanted to welcome them with open arms. But I have invited a lot of folks that you guys requested me to invite and have them scheduled for the semester and next. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for the work that you're already doing, and I am so excited to continue to work with you this year. That was a lot of information, so if I can clarify anything, please let me know, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Billman? Seeing none, thank you so much for sharing, Maggie. Are there any other directors who would like to give a report right now? Seeing none, I do have a report that I would like to give pretty briefly. Most of the things that I wanted to announce, I covered and put on the announcements page earlier, so I'm not going to recover those. But I do, just like Speaker Pro Tempore Billman, want to revisit the platforms that I ran on. It's really important to me that like when I run on things and say that I'm going to do them in front of this body, that I'm ultimately held accountable. So just for a quick update, my professional development platform was all about having committee interviews, which we had in the spring, and they went really, really well, I thought. So I just want to give a big round of applause to all the committee chairs for the work that they did. And as you're all getting started in your committees, I hope that you found that interview experience productive. My organizational involvement platform was about doing one-on-one meetings with student senators. I've done about like 15, so about a quarter of all of you right now, but I'm working my way through them. So be checking your email, be looking for times, and I'll just be reaching out to like meet with you so we can get started, get to know each other a bit better, and just like set goals and just get a chat and stuff as the year gets started. Lastly, my relationship building platform was about like having once monthly events where we could all get together and just have fun. I'm very sorry to announce that I'm having to cancel that platform. As of right now, I don't really see there's a feasible possibility for like a large scale fun event that I invite 60 people to. You know, that would require like exemptions from the counties, and the last thing I want to do is put anyone's like health and safety at risk. So because of that, I'm ultimately going to be canceling that platform, at least until hopefully in the spring semester, we're able to have more events and COVID will maybe have subsided or there's a vaccine or something. But as of right now, I'm going to have to stick a pin in that one, which I really do apologize about. However, I've been thinking about maybe ways to build up some of my other platforms, even if I'm not able to like fully execute one of them because of the situation we're in. So I want to return to the professional development platform, and I want to introduce a really new idea, and it'll be something to look forward to during the year. And that is an idea that I had called the SGA Leadership Lecture Series. So this idea came from the fact that both Speaker Pro Tempore Billman and I actually both volunteered at a summer camp over the summer for high school sophomores called HOBY, which stands for Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership. Her and I were both volunteers there, and it was really funny for me, like revisiting leadership concepts and kind of digging into them. And I thought that it would be really fun to share some of those ideas, some other ideas that we have with the rest of this body. I think oftentimes, a lot of the time we say that like everyone in SGA is a leader, but we throw everyone to the wind and expect you to know how to do everything from the start. And sometimes that's not always true. So because of that, we're gonna be doing like small short lectures during like reports or open period in the year to come, not super often, but the idea is that we introduce an idea and then Speaker Pro Tempore Billman might host like a workshop or a more involved activity to go with it at a later date. So it kind of combines both of our platforms together, which I really do like. So I don't have anything tonight for you all, but I have a list of topics pinned right here in front of me in the office. So be on the lookout for some really cool like leadership lectures that will hopefully just get you thinking about your own leadership style and ways to interact with others as we move through this year. So that's all I had in my report. Are there any questions about any of that? Seeing none, the next thing that we have on our agenda for this evening is college caucus time. So during this time, we'll get together in our college caucuses, and this is just meant to be kind of an informal session for you all to get reacquainted with each other if you don't know each other yet, but to also kind of just offer a bit of a recess right now as well for you to take a bit of like a mental health break and just relax for a few minutes. I've almost assigned everyone to a breakout room. These will be 10 minutes from the time that we start is how long that they will go. So give me just a few minutes to finish assigning everyone to the breakout room. And then we'll have 10 minutes in college caucus time so that everyone has the opportunity to just kind of like get to know each other, chat for a little bit, and just take a bit of a break right now before we proceed with the rest of our agenda. So thank you all so much, and I appreciate your patience.
Nathan, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Can I be put back in my room? I got kicked out.
We just closed all of them, so no
Easy enough.
no rush. Hey there, everyone. Glad to have you all back. We hope you enjoyed your time in caucus time tonight and enjoyed getting the chance to catch up with the other senators in each of your colleges. Hopefully that was an enjoyable experience for you and you just got the chance to chat for a little bit. In the interest of time, we're going to keep moving forward on our agenda for this evening. So give me a second to screen share the agenda. So next up on our agenda, we have nothing to approve or vote on tonight. We took care of all business in the spring. So we're down to introduction of legislation. The first bill on the docket is Bill 2021-06, amendments to the KSU SGA statutes concerning the reading of a land acknowledgement. Is there a motion to consider Bill 6? Moved by Caucus Leader Phillips. Is there a second? Seconded by Caucus Leader Atchison. With that, will the author please come forward and read Bill 6?
Bill 2021-06, amendments to the KSU SGA statutes concerning the reading of a land acknowledgement by Maggie Bowman and Nathan Boswell. Whereas it is necessary to continuously review the Kansas State.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Let me start over. Bill 2021-06, amendments to the KSU SGA statutes concerning the reading of a land acknowledgement by Maggie Billman and Nathan Bothwell. Whereas it is necessary to continuously review the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU SGA, governing documents. Whereas before settlement by European Americans, the area presently known as Manhattan, Kansas, was inhabited by the Kaw people, also known as the Kanza people. Whereas, like many other indigenous lands, the area presently known as Manhattan, Kansas, was ceded to the United States federal government by the Kaw tribe. Whereas, throughout the period of westward expansion in the surrounding decades, countless atrocities were committed against the indigenous peoples of North America, including the forcible taking of indigenous lands. Whereas it is important to understand and acknowledge the history of Kansas State University even before its founding as a United States first land-grant university. Whereas KSU SGA has the opportunity to acknowledge this history and set an example for other campus constituencies by reading a land acknowledgement at student senate meetings. And whereas legislating this process into the KSU SGA statutes will ensure that future terms of KSU SGA also acknowledge this history. Be it resolved that Section 1, Section 0202 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU SGA, statutes be amended to read as follows. Section 020201, Pledge of Allegiance. A, the Pledge of Allegiance shall immediately follow the calling to order of each student senate meeting. The proposed section 020202, land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement shall be read by the Speaker of the Student Senate immediately following the Pledge of Allegiance. Section 2, all sections in Chapter 02 of the KSU SGA statutes following Section 020202 shall be renumbered accordingly. And Section 3, this bill shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
I will now stand for questions.
Are there any questions for our speaker? Chair Booth.
Yeah, thanks for reading it. I know that you have reasoning behind not including the text of the land acknowledgement in the statutes. And like one of my worries about this might be that it ends up being kind of vague about what that means. So can you go over what the reasoning is by not including it?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Chair Booth. So the reason for not including the specific land acknowledgement in this bill that like amends the statutes by not including the land acknowledgement in the statutes is that frankly governing documents are a little harder to amend than just having a land acknowledgement there that can be constantly updated and up for review. I think that it's important to have something like this constantly up for review because we're always learning and growing, especially when it comes to being multiculturally aware and competent. I think that it's important for us to constantly be striving to be better in the way that we respect other cultures. And who knows, there might be things that we learn within the next 6 months that we would want to change from our land acknowledgement.
Okay, thank you.
If I can add on to that really quickly, specifically, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is actually working on writing the land acknowledgement that I would read if this bill were to pass. So it's something that a committee is working on, not something that myself and Speaker Pro Tem Billman are working on.
Thank you for that clarification, Speaker Bothwell.
Yes, thanks.
Are there any further questions for the speaker? Oh, Senator Glasscock.
Hey, just for maybe people who've never really heard or read land acknowledgement before, could you maybe read an excerpt of a one that would be similar one that we would pick, just to kind of give everybody context?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull one up for this.
I can get it.
Thank you.
I will get one pulled up, everyone. Sorry about the echoing. Maggie and I are in the same room if it's not obvious. Give me just a second to get it pulled up. So this idea actually came from the fact that Faculty Senate, the governing body for faculty on campus, actually reads the land acknowledgement at every one of their meetings. So I can give you an example of the one that they're currently using right now. So they have as the first land grant institution established under the 1862 Morrill Act, we acknowledge that the state of Kansas is historically home to many Native nations, including the Kaw, Osage, and Pawnee, among others. Furthermore, Kansas is the current home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Prairie Band Potawatomi, the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas, the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, and Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri in Kansas and Nebraska. Sorry about that. I couldn't talk while I was also hearing an echo. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, Speaker Pro Tem Billman. Next up on our agenda is Bill 7. Is there a motion to consider Bill 7? If I can get a so moved by Caucus Leader Phillips. Can I get a second in the chat? Seconded by Caucus Leader Carlson. So I'm the author of Bill 7. So this is amendments to the KSU SGA statutes concerning W-9 forms by Nathan Bothwell. Whereas it is necessary to continuously review the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes, whereas the fine arts privilege fee is audited and reviewed every 3 years, whereas the fine arts privilege fee is set to be reviewed prior to fiscal year 2022, whereas an internal audit delivered on July 15th, 2020 noted the need for W-9 forms to be completed and submitted for lecturers, speakers, or entertainers that are paid through student privilege fee funds, whereas for security purposes, the Department of Financial Services requires W-9 forms to be submitted by the payee of privilege fee funds, and whereas amending the student activity fee and fine arts fee funding regulations to reflect these policies will ensure improved compliance with all future audits and reviews. Be it enacted that Section 1, Chapter 21, Section 210103, F3 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes be amended to read as follows. So now it says, to receive payment, all recipients of LSE fees are required to submit an LSE fees information sheet, and a W-9 must be submitted by the payee to the Department of Financial Services. Personal credit cards may not be used to pay LSE fees. Section 2, Chapter 23, Section 230102G3 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes be amended to read as follows. LSE fees to receive payment, it's the same thing. Section 3, the bill shall take effect upon passage by Student Senate and signature of the student body president. With that, are there any questions for me about Bill 7?
I have a correction on line 34 and 35. I missed this earlier, but you can just use KSU SGA instead of spelling it all out again.
Yes, I will get that down and we will get that edited. Are there any further questions or corrections about Bill 7? Seeing none, we'll now move on to our next piece of legislation. Our next one is Bill 8. Is there a motion to consider Bill 8? Moved by Caucus Leader Phillips. Can I get a second in the chat? Seconded by Caucus Leader Atchison. Since this one is pretty long, can I get I would entertain a motion to summarize, also because I'm the one reading it. Moved by Caucus Leader Carlson, seconded by Chair Booz. Are there any objections to the author being allowed to summarize? Seeing none, okay, so I'm just gonna read the two whereas clauses. So Bill 2021-08, FY 2020 closing of accounts by Nathan Bothwell, Hannah Heatherman, and Alan Hines. Whereas in accordance with the Kansas State University Student Governing Association funding statutes, the KSU SGA treasurer is required to close academic competition team, campus-wide organization, college council, institutional services, multicultural organization, and fine arts council student group accounts on an annual basis that retain unused funds. And whereas the accounts listed below have remaining funds that are subject to that provision above. If you scroll through the bill, you'll see that they're organized by different groups. So the first is all campus-wide and college council organizations. The second is multicultural organization accounts. Section 3 is institutional services accounts. And Section 4 is academic competition team accounts. And Section 5 is fine arts activity accounts. The closing of all of these different accounts, which is funds left over from last year, adds up to a grand total of $72,597.40. And all of that will be reverted back to their respective reserve accounts, which are listed in the bill. Are there any questions about that bill? I summarized it pretty quickly. Seeing no questions, we'll now proceed on. Our next piece of legislation is Resolution 14. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 14? Moved by Caucus Leader Atchison. Is there a second? Seconded by Chair Brown. Will the author of Resolution 14 please come forward?
All right. Resolution 14, KSU SGA Executive Branch 2020-2021 Priorities by Nathan Bothwell, Lane Lundeen, Carson Gemland, and Tel Whitmer. Whereas the executive branch has drafted this resolution with the intent to clearly outline our priorities for the coming term so that we can be held accountable throughout our year in office. Whereas the executive branch is committed to creating an affordable or a more affordable education by fighting for lower student fees, lower tuition rates, and a more accountable university system that prioritizes more efficient and effective use of student dollars. Whereas the executive branch is committed to strengthening student mental health and well-being by implementing a comprehensive student resilience project that gives students tools to be successful and strong. Whereas the executive branch is committed to cultivating an inclusive and culturally plural campus centered in empathy, compassion, and mutual respect through the painstaking work of civic catechesis and engagement with key campus stakeholders and all students. Whereas the executive branch is committed to restoring, renewing, and revitalizing our student governing association by modernizing policies and procedures to better serve students. Whereas the executive branch is committed to building a better future by introducing interdisciplinary academic programs such as sustainability and conservation to offer real solutions to real challenges. Be it resolved that Section 1, the executive branch is committed to focusing their time and efforts to see substantial improvement and changes on these priorities. 1, affordability and accountability. 2, student resilience and well-being. 3, civic health and community. 4, SGA modernization and revitalization. 5, sustainability and conservation. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to all the members of the 2020-2021 Executive Branch Cabinet, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students, Dr. Thomas Lane, and University President, Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? We have a clarification from Caucus Leader Phillips about semicolons and periods. I am not the expert on that. Chair Booz, do you know the answer?
Yeah, that's correct. And the second to last should also actually like have semicolon and.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the last one should end in a period.
Okay, we will get those formatting changes fixed. Thank you, Caucus Leader Phillips.
I do also have a correction.
Yes.
Line 42, Myers should be with or M-Y-E-R-S.
Yeah, Senator Burke also had that.
Yes, thank you so much, Senator Burke. And then Chair Rodriguez, I see that you have a question.
Yeah, was it ever discussed if the bill could be sent to the whole student body, as you are the president, vice president, and executive branch of the whole student body, not only the members of cabinet?
I'm definitely open to that, and we can talk more about that. I'm not sure what that could look like. Are you referring? You think we should email that out?
Well, yeah, like you're the only one that has like the power and the listserv to send it to all students. I just think it will be at least comforting in a way if you send it to everybody, because you're serving all students, not just Student Senate or SGA.
That definitely makes sense. I know a big topic of discussion with Jansen and so my predecessor and others was that using the student listserv is something that I was warned to take very precautiously so that we don't get that taken away. But I think that's a promising idea. So I'd be happy to talk one-on-one about that with you, just to get maybe some ideas on how to go about that. But does that sound good, Natalia?
Yeah, that works. And I also have a follow-up.
Yeah, and Natalia, just before you go, the one thing I want to say is I was going to refer this to the Senate Executive Committee was my intention at the end of the meeting. So we would have it there on Tuesday. I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, that's nice.
But yes, your follow-up is granted.
Okay, after you mentioned all your priorities, do you guys have a goal or a timeline set for all of these, as well as any steps that we could like start looking at or start learning about?
So yeah, there's no timeline at this point. We haven't. We're holding our first cabinet meeting next week too. So there's just a lot of communication going on right now. But we've spent some significant time this summer clarifying what the direction I think would be inclusive for everybody, and the direction I think we wanted to pursue in our administration as the executive branch. So no specifics yet. Again, but I'd be happy to discuss more with you and plan more things out.
Sorry, it looks like intern coordinator Heatherman had questions in the chat, which was how will you know when you've met these goals, and debate next week would you present like more specific objectives you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, part of the reasoning behind behind the way we structured this resolution was because I think there's great opportunities for collaboration with individuals from SGA and Student Senate, as well as our cabinet directors, to provide your ideas and your input in these areas. But I'd be happy to share the areas that we'd really like to make progress in and that we've identified, and I can do that next week for sure.
Are there any further questions for the speaker? Question from Senator Shunjay.
I was just going to ask that when you were talking, you kept saying that we, so I'm not quite sure as to who is we. May you please clarify that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm referring to the executive branches and myself, Vice President Lundeen, Chief of Staff Jim Lind, and our cabinet.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, Tel, for reading this. Next on our agenda is Resolution 15. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 15? Moved by Senator Levi. Is there a second anywhere? Seconded by Caucus Leader Phillips. So the author of Resolution 15, please come forward.
Yeah, so Resolution 2021-15, KSU-SGA statement regarding the 2020 United States elections. By Governmental Relations Committee, Andrew Booz, Nathan Bothwell, Creighton Glasscock, and Blake Phillips. Whereas the preamble to the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association states that the students of Kansas State University are united in the belief that the goals of a democratic community can be furthered only by the citizenship habits, attitudes, skills, and knowledge acquired through experience. Whereas the Constitution goes on to declare that the degree of student development is likely to parallel closely the extent of responsibility for which students carry for their own society. Whereas students are ultimately responsible for the environment created in every formal or informal student organization. Whereas the 2020 United States elections will be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, with months of campaigning leading up to the date of the elections. Whereas the period from now until November 3rd, 2020 is likely to be a stressful time for many students, faculty, and staff due to the rhetoric and discussions around the elections. Whereas how students engage with each other throughout this period can easily set the tone for the next 4 years of student interaction and debate. Whereas voting interactions and respectfully interacting with people who have different political views are citizenship habits which must be acquired through experience. Whereas members of KSU-SGA should lead by modeling these habits for others. And whereas it is beneficial to lay out a set of non-enforceable expectations common to KSU-SGA about how students should conduct themselves before, during, and after the 2020 United States elections. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association encourages every student who is eligible to vote to do so. Section 2, KSU-SGA encourages students to vote in local elections as well as national elections, since local elections can be just as important to setting policies that affect every member of the KSU community. Section 3, KSU-SGA advises voters to learn about every candidate on their ballot before casting it to ensure that their vote aligns with their values and beliefs rather than simply political affiliation or popular sentiment. Section 4, KSU-SGA encourages every student to engage with others in a spirit of civility, decency, and mutual respect in all areas of life, no matter what others' political beliefs are. Section 5, KSU-SGA reaffirms the relevance and importance of the Kansas State University Principles of Community. Section 6, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, This resolution shall be sent to all students of Kansas State University. Riley County Clerk Rich Fargo, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students Dr. Thomas Lane, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions for our speaker?
I actually have a friendly amendment as well.
Yes.
So someone who I ran this by also suggested sending it to the director of the Institute for Civic Discourse and Democracy, Tim Schaefer. I'm not entirely sure if I said his last name correctly.
Sorry, I'm just noting. Okay.
Yeah, and that's
Just
at
writing that down.
K-State. So
Yes. The ICDD. Yes, I have that down. Are there any further questions or corrections for Chair Booz? Seeing none, thank you so much, Chair Booz, for presenting this tonight. With that, we have exhausted all of the legislation that we have on the docket for this evening. So moving up, we are now entering our second open period for the evening. Are there any second open period speakers? Advisor Kelly Ferris.
Hi, everyone. I would just want to welcome everyone back to campus. As someone who's been out tabling every day for the first 2 weeks of classes, it's been super great to see people wandering around campus and whatnot. I echo President Whitmer's comments earlier about please make sure you take care of yourselves, wear your masks, do your part, both on campus and off, because all of your faculty and staff want to see you continue for the entire semester. So please do your part. And I also just wanted to make a note that tonight, starting at 11 p.m., the new Safe Ride program kicks off. And if you haven't seen all of our social media or emails or K-State Today, just a reminder, it is now operated by Lyft. And so it's super easy. All you have to do is connect your K-State email address to your Lyft account and accept the promo code that will show up. And you can get free rides on Safe Ride Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. And it'll cover up to $10 for your first 2 rides this month in August. And encourage all of your peers to use that. It's not just about if you've been out drinking and you don't want to drive home. It's also if you've been at the library late and you want to be able to get home safely as well. So encourage your peers to utilize it. Take full advantage. You pay for it as part of your privilege fee. So we're really excited that that is kicking off tonight at 11 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Are there any questions for the Legislative Branch Advisor, Kelly Ferris? Seeing none, intern coordinator Heatherman indicated that she needed to speak, but then she just texted me seconds ago saying that she's having connection issues, and so that she will not be able to give her open period announcement. Are there any further second open period speakers? Chair Booz.
Yeah, hey everyone again. Just wanted to do really quick 2 comments. One is if you are having any trouble writing something and you want some feedback, I set this in the college caucus time, but I wanted to extend it to every student senator is I'm willing to help out. And so please email me if you want some help on that, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Second thing was on Resolution 2021-15 that I just read. If you have any questions, please let me know as soon as possible. I don't want to be debating this all night next week if there is actually a significant amount of questions. So yeah, please let me know.
Are there any questions for Chair Booz? Seeing none, Chair Colburn, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. It's been so good to get back into the swing of things tonight. I just wanted to say I already kind of talked to my committee about this in our opening email and things, but I just wanted to remind everyone that GR this year is going to be working with the Manhattan local community, city government, and Riley County government. And the relationship between Manhattan and K-State has always been a really positive one, and a really and one that's definitely beneficial both ways. And I would just remind you that your actions have a really large effect on the Manhattan community. We and our outbreaks are going to decide if K-12 schools and K-12 kids can keep going to school. Our actions are going to decide and relate back to how many Manhattan residents are going to test positive and contract COVID. And that often Manhattan community is a little older than K-State's community and can lead to really serious sickness, really serious health problems, hospitalizations, and yes, even deaths. So wear your masks, don't go to parties, and be really safe this weekend, as always. And I know you all will, but I also know that you all are in a lot of organizations and you have a lot of influence within those. So while I know you all are safe, I hope that you also advocate for others to be safe this weekend and other times too. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Chair Colburn? Seeing none, are there any further open period speakers? And just a reminder, I don't think I ever said this back in the spring, but anyone is welcome to speak during open period. No matter your position, if you're a guest, whatever, I don't think I've ever really clarified that. It says that I have to recognize you. So I just want to make that really clear, I guess. Sorry, I don't think I've ever mentioned that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Are there any other second open period speakers? Seeing none, I do have a short little kind of prepared speech that I would like to give right now. If you all would be so kind to give me the floor for just a second. So just to let you know, I really wanted to take some time tonight to be pretty authentic and honest with all of you. If there is one word that would describe my feelings, my emotions for the past week, it would be stress. I have just been stressed about my classes. I have been stressed about doing a good job here in student government. I'm stressed about the global pandemic that is happening in our country. And I'm stressed about the racial and societal injustices that are happening in our country. That's literally happening all around us. That feeling, stress, is not going to go away anytime soon. I'm not trying to be a downer here, but 2020 is not the year that I think many of us thought it was going to be at this time last year. But times of great stress also offer a lot of time for reflection. And lately, I've been reflecting on an old SGA memory of mine that I would like to share with all of you. At the final Student Senate meeting each year, we give the opportunity for graduating seniors to give a final kind of senior speech to impart wisdom and say goodbye to the rest of the body. A really close friend of mine who was the Senate Operations Chair before Chair Booz, Shelby Carpenter, gave a really wonderful speech that I will always remember. Her speech was about the idea of grace and this idea that we need to be forgiving and kind to one another. Right now, I think that we could all use a little bit of grace in our lives. And so if I could make a request of all of you this evening, it would be that I'd like to ask you to show grace to 3 different people right now. First, I would really appreciate any grace that you could give to me in leading these meetings. I am going to try my damn hardest to make sure that SGA is good this year and to be the best that I can be. I want to see all of you succeed and enjoy this experience. But I am human and I'm going to make mistakes in this role. I'm going to handle a situation incorrectly at some point during this year. Or make the wrong decision when it comes to something. I'm gonna forget to call on someone in the chat, or I'm gonna cut off someone who might be speaking and that might be inappropriate. But I really want to let you all know right now that I wanna do the best that I can do at this job So don't ever hesitate to send me feedback. Don't ever hesitate to criticize me, to send me an email to let me know what you think that I should do better. There's a few people who have already sent me guidance and advice, and to those people, I would really like to say thank you for helping me be like the best at my job that I want to be. Your grace and support has meant a lot to me, and I want to continue improving so that all of you can have the best experience possible this fall. Second, I really want to ask that you all show grace to each other. Let's face it, that there is going to come some heated debates and some very vocal disagreements later this year. We have some tough problems that we are going to tackle, and we will not always agree on the best way to solve them. But I want to let you all know right now that I know for a fact that every person on this call, whether I have known you for 4 years or have just met you in a one-on-one last week, I want to know that every person that I have met in SGA so far wants what is best for students. I can say for a fact that there are so many good, kind, and intelligent leaders on the Zoom call right now. When disagreements happen later this year, please remember that fact in the back of your head, that all of your peers care about doing good just like you. They might just want to do it in a different way. Finally, and most importantly, please remember to show yourself grace. This year is going to be trying, it is going to be hard, and it is going to be difficult. If you need to take a step back, if you need to pause, please do that. You should not be putting yourself through stress for something like student government. So please, 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 email me, text me, if you need someone to chat to, if you need someone to talk to, if you need a week off, if you need to not go to committee for a week, please let me know and I will help you and I will work with you, because your mental health right now is most important. And we are literally facing a once in a century like pandemic that like no one who is currently living was prepared for. Like being stressed is a normal human reaction to feel. So please, please, please show grace to yourself and forgive yourself for things when times get hard. So that's my ask. If you all can please like show grace to me as I lead these meetings, if you can show grace to each other, and if you can show grace to yourself, I think that we'll be set up for a really good year. So that's really just the note that I wanted to end this meeting on tonight. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any about what I just said. So. Oh, well, thank you, Senator Levi. That is very kind of you. You all are so wonderful. See, I just said this is a group of amazing, wonderful people. So thank you all so much for the very kind words that you're putting in the chat. You're all amazing. With that, we will now move into second roll call, which is the last thing on our agenda for this evening before adjournment. So thank you all so much. I'll turn it over to Speaker Pro Tempore Billman.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I didn't know if that was a problem again. Okay. Scrolling up. I'm already up. Goodness gracious. Okay. Once again, correct me if I say your name wrong. It's important to me. Yes. Okay. Atchison.
Here.
Booth.
Here.
Brown Alex. Brown Madison.
Here.
Bruce. Brummett.
Still here.
Bruno. Burke.
Here.
Carr. Clements.
Right here.
Colburn.
Here.
Okay, sorry, I got off a row. 1 sec. All right, Cox. Croslow.
Here.
De Santiago. Diaz de Leon.
Here.
Dilivo.
Here.
Fox. Frederick.
Here.
Gallardo.
Here.
Garrett,
Here.
Glasscock,
Here.
Grills, Grolmes,
Here.
Guzman, Hamlin,
Here.
Hurd. Oh, thank you. Hurd.
Here.
I skipped over Harmon.
Here.
Thank you. Hernandez, Hutchings, Jambunathan,
Here.
Johnson, Kidd, Levi,
Here.
Manners,
Here.
McKee, McVeigh,
Here.
Muthukumar,
Here.
Knoll, Norwood,
Here.
Nunnik,
Here.
Phillips,
Here.
Panakatu,
Here.
Porter, Richenberg,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Rossi, Schmidt, Shunjay,
Here.
Snyder Ben,
Here.
Snyder Blaine,
Here.
Fonts,
Here.
Wagner, Wallace,
Here.
Ward, Watkins,
Here.
Wilcox,
Here.
Willis, and Winholtz.
Here.
All right. Is there anybody that I missed or anyone in the chat? Oh, Willis and Carr. Okay. Let me go back and fix that. Okay. There are 38 senators present.
Thank you so much, Maggie. With that, I will now seek a motion to adjourn until next Thursday at 7 p.m. Can I get a so moved in the chat for that?
Can we get where things are being referred to?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just forgot to do that. Yes, I'm supposed to tell you where all the legislation is going. Thank you, Chair Booth, for that. I'm sorry that I forgot to do that. Give me just a second. I minimized my agenda. Okay, so Bill 6, the Land Acknowledgement Bill, will be going to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Bill 7, the W-9 forms, will be going to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. Bill 8, the closing of accounts, will be going to the Senate Executive Committee. The Executive Branch Priorities, Resolution 14, will go to the Senate Executive Committee. And then the Resolution 15 about the Statement on Elections will be going to the Governmental Relations Committee. Sorry about that. I almost forgot that. Thank you for catching me, Chair
No,
Booth.
you're fine. Thanks.
So with that, Cox Leader Phillips, I'll still keep your motion because it was in order at the time that I made it. Cox Leader Phillips moved to adjourn until next Thursday, and Cox Leader Willis seconded. Any objections? Seeing none, I will see you all next week at 7. Have a nice evening and stay safe and healthy.